Welcome to ELA Plus, your free YouTube guide to English studies and the English language arts. I'm your host, Brian E. Denton. In today's video lesson, we're going to learn a little something about the metrical foot we call the trochee. We'll begin the video lesson by looking at some definitions of the trochee provided by well-regarded poetry reference books and also some online sources. We'll use these to develop our own definition of the term. After that, we'll take a look at what the trochee looks like visually, and we'll follow that up with a brief discussion of the phonaesthetics of the trochee, using as an example of trochaic verse a certain poem by one Edgar Allan Poe. Finally, we'll conclude everything with some comprehension questions. Let's get to it. Okay, so over in the box we have 5 definitions of the term trochee. The first is provided by the Poetry Foundation, and they tell us that a trochee is a metrical foot consisting of an accented syllable followed by an unaccented syllable. Moving along, we have Cleanth Brooks and Robert Penn Warren from their great book Understanding Poetry, sharing that a trochee is, quote, one accented followed by one unaccented syllable, end quote. Timothy Steele, in his book All the Fun's in How You Say a Thing, defines the trochee as a disyllabic foot whose sequence is accented, unaccented. Then we have Mark Strand and Evan Boland defining the term as a long stress followed by a short one. Finally, the Wikipedians tell us that a trochee is a metrical foot consisting of a stressed syllable followed by an unstressed one in qualitative meter, as found in English, and in modern linguistics, or in quantitative meter, as found in Latin and ancient Greek, a heavy syllable followed by a light one, also described as a long syllable followed by a short one. In this respect, a trochee is the reverse of an iamb. Clearly, what we see in all these definitions is that there are 2 constants. Number 1, a trochee is 2 syllables in length, and number 2, it begins with a stressed syllable and concludes with an unstressed syllable. Therefore, ELA Plus would define a trochee as a 2-syllable foot consisting of one stressed syllable followed by an unstressed syllable. And now that we know what a trochee is, let's take a look at what a trochee looks like. As it turns out, the word trochee is itself a trochee. Over here in the box, you can see that the first syllable of the word is stressed, while the second syllable is unstressed. It's pronounced trochee, not trochee. Now this pattern of having a stressed syllable followed by an unstressed syllable makes the trochee what we call a falling foot. The reason we call it a falling foot is because we start out on high with the stressed syllable before falling down to the unstressed syllable. So when you think about a trochee, think about a hammer strike. We start out on high and then we come crashing down. It's this vocal motion of a hammer slamming down that suggests to us the phonaesthetics of the trochee. A hammer comes striking down. This is precisely the emotional register of the trochee. Think about it. Poetry is obviously an oral medium. We hear a poem, whether we read it to ourselves on the page or we have a poem read aloud to us. The orality of a poem, therefore, is of supreme importance. And as it turns out, the different metrical feet have different oral emotional registers. For instance, we learned about the iamb in the previous video lesson of this unit. In that video lesson, we learned that the iamb is the most common metrical foot that we have in English. As such, iambic meter tends to read as more natural, relaxed, and winsome. Remember that the iamb is a 2-syllable foot of one unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. It's therefore the opposite of a trochee. Phonaesthetically speaking, the trochee is also the opposite of an iamb. So, whereas the iamb, as we said, reads as relaxed, natural, and winsome, a trochee, they're often heard as more disparate, disturbed, and saturnine. Annie Finch and Alexandra Oliver and their book Measure for Measure begin their introduction to trochaic verse by describing the trochee as intense, like a hammer, like a thunderclap, like a drumbeat. It hits you hard at the beginning, and then rises only to fall again. No wonder poets have often enjoyed using this meter for intense subject matter. Similarly, Mary Oliver says that a trochee is a wonderful and forceful way to begin a line, and that when a line begins with a heavy stress, it immediately signals to the reader something different is at hand, something different from ordinary speech. Let's now look at and listen to an example of trochaic verse so we get a better understanding of these phonaesthetics of the trochee. Here in the box we have a single stanza from the great trochaic poem The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Now if you haven't already read The Raven, I seriously do not understand what you're doing with your life, and you need to remedy that deficiency immediately. So I'll provide a link to the poem down in the description so you can get on that. For now though, just listen to this reading because it's going to give you a good introduction to the phonaesthetics of trochaic verse. Here we go. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, Lenore? This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, Lenore. Merely this, and nothing more. And now we have the metrical scansion of this stanza in the box. Now typically, when we're doing scansion, we use an X to mark the syllable that is unstressed and a forward slash to mark the syllable that is stressed. But because the lines of The Raven are so long, it would just be too cluttered and I'd have to reduce the size of the font and it would be unreadable on YouTube. So what I did instead was I made bold the stressed syllables and I left regular the unstressed syllables. So take a quick look at this stanza. Do you see what makes The Raven a trochaic poem? Remember our definition. A trochee is a two-syllable foot consisting of a stressed syllable followed by an unstressed syllable. Do you see how this poem fits that pattern? Listening to this stanza, it becomes clear that the trochee is a powerful, forceful, intense, and striking metrical foot. So when poets like Poe, when they want to create a poetry that is haunting and intense, they'll often go with the trochee over the iamb. There are, of course, other metrical feet that start with a stressed syllable, so they attain the same phonaesthetics as the trochee, but those are the subject for future video lessons. For now, though, we're done learning about the trochee. The first thing we did in this video lesson is define the term. Then we took a look at what the trochee looks like visually. After that, we discussed the phonaesthetics of trochaic verse. And all of this should be enough to teach you that the trochee is a two-syllable foot consisting of one stressed syllable followed by an unstressed syllable. But just to make sure that we got everything down, let's go to the comprehension questions. Number 1. What is a trochee? Number 2. Why is a trochee considered a falling foot? Number 3. Identify the lines of trochaic verse taken from these three famous poems. A. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? B. Tiger, tiger, burning bright. And C. What is Africa to me? Finally, 4. What are the phonaesthetics of trochaic verse? Alright, that concludes our video lesson on the trochee. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like the video and consider subscribing to the channel. ELA Plus is your free guide to English studies and the English language arts. We have plenty of English language content, so be sure to check it all out on the homepage. Every week, there'll be something new. I'm Brian E. Denton. Until our next video lesson, keep reading and take care of yourselves and others. Thank you.